Trump is shaking up the ATF like no president has before, and it's sending shockwaves through the Second Amendment community. Imagine an ATF that doesn't crack down on pistol braces, suppressors, or even 80% lowers. Sounds like a dream, right? But here's the kicker. Could Trump actually defund or disband the ATF altogether? It's a question gun owners everywhere are asking, and today, we're diving into the possibilities. Whether you're cheering him on or still skeptical, this is a conversation you don't want to miss. Let's break it all down and see what's really going on behind the scenes. Before we get into it, I want to hear what you think about all of this. Do you believe the ATF should be defunded or maybe even abolished entirely? Drop your thoughts in the comments below and let's hash it out. I know this topic sparks a lot of debate, but that's what makes these discussions so important. Now, some of you might already have strong opinions about Trump's moves in this space, and others might be unsure if these changes would really make a difference. Either way, your voice matters in this conversation, and I'm here to dive into the details to help us all understand what's at stake. Stick around to the end. I've got some bold takes on what could come next, and I think you'll want to weigh in. Let's get started. For decades, the ATF has been a thorn in the side of law-abiding gun owners. From unclear rulings on pistol braces to the constant redefinition of what constitutes a firearm, it often feels like we're fighting a losing battle. But now, Trump is shaking things up in ways that might finally shift the tide in our favor. The ATF has been a lightning rod for controversy, especially in the gun rights community. Whether it's enforcing rules that seem to change by the day or focusing on restricting access to legal firearms, this agency has left many of us questioning its purpose. And let's not forget, it's not just the rules, it's the way they're enforced. For example, the crackdown on suppressors and braces left countless gun owners scrambling to comply with new regulations that seem to appear overnight. But here's where it gets interesting. There's been talk that Trump might appoint someone like Blake Masters to lead the ATF. If you haven't heard of him, Masters is a political figure who's made waves for his no-nonsense stance on the Second Amendment. Imagine someone like that taking charge, a leader who actually understands the gun community instead of working against it. What's more, Trump's track record shows he's not afraid to shake up the status quo. Love him or hate him, the man has a way of turning institutions on their heads, and the ATF could be next. So, whether you see this as a long overdue reckoning or just another political move, one thing's clear. There's a lot at stake for gun owners. Now that we've set the stage, let's dig deeper into what these changes could mean for us and our rights. Let's start with one of the biggest ways Trump could change the game, by appointing someone like Blake Masters as the head of the ATF. Now I know what you're thinking. Who is Blake Masters, and what does he bring to the table? Masters is a political figure out of Arizona who's aligned himself with Trump in the past. But here's the kicker. He's not your typical politician. Unlike most who tiptoe around Second Amendment issues, Masters dives in head first. For example, Masters has been unapologetic about standing up for firearms that are often demonized in the media, like short-barreled rifles. He's one of the rare politicians who openly acknowledges the true purpose of these weapons: self-defense, and yes, even protection against a tyrannical government. That's a bold stance you don't see every day, and it's exactly the kind of mindset gun owners need in a leadership role. Think about what this could mean for the ATF. Instead of focusing on bans and restrictions, a leader like Masters could push the agency toward practical reforms. Maybe we'd finally see some common sense applied to the endless debates over suppressors, pistol braces, and 80% lowers. Instead of new regulations popping up overnight, we might get stability and clarity for once. But it's not all sunshine and rainbows. Critics will argue that appointing someone like Masters could lead to political backlash or even more gridlock in Washington. And let's not forget, Masters has his own challenges. Despite Trump's endorsements, he's struggled to win elections, which raises questions about whether he has the clout to lead a federal agency effectively. Still, the idea of someone in the ATF who actually understands and respects gun owners, that's a game changer. Whether or not Masters gets the nod, Trump's willingness to consider someone like him signals a shift in how the ATF could operate moving forward. Now let's talk about Trump's broader track record with the Second Amendment. Love him or hate him, Trump's presidency brought the gun rights debate into sharper focus. One of his biggest contributions was his Supreme Court appointments. Justices like Brett Kavanaugh and Amy Coney Barrett have already played pivotal roles in cases that protect gun rights, and their influence will be felt for decades. But it's not just about the courts. During his presidency, Trump backed efforts to establish nationwide concealed carry reciprocity. Imagine a system where your concealed carry permit from one state is valid in all 50 states. For those of us who travel, that would be a massive win. No more worrying about whether you're breaking the law just by crossing state lines. Unfortunately, that effort didn't make it through Congress, but it showed Trump's willingness to fight for gun owners. Of course, not everything he did was perfect. Many of you might remember the bump stock ban, a decision that left a sour taste in the mouths of many Second Amendment advocates. Critics argue it set a dangerous precedent for executive overreach, and they're not wrong. But even with that misstep, Trump's overall record leans heavily toward protecting our rights. Looking ahead, his recent moves suggest he's doubling down on his commitment to gun owners. By considering leaders like Blake Masters and openly discussing reforms to the ATF, Trump is signaling that he's ready to go further than ever before. Whether or not you believe he'll follow through, there's no denying he's putting Second Amendment issues back in the spotlight. Now let's dig into the policies themselves. The ATF has long been criticized for its inconsistent and often arbitrary rulings. One day, pistol braces are fine. The next day, they're not. It's the same story with suppressors, 80% lowers, and just about anything that falls under the National Firearms Act. For gun owners, this lack of clarity isn't just frustrating, it's downright dangerous. Imagine a world where the ATF actually worked for gun owners instead of against them. That's the kind of shift we could see with the right leadership in place. Take suppressors, for example. Most people think of them as tools for assassins, thanks to Hollywood, but the reality is far less dramatic. Suppressors are about hearing protection and better accuracy, not about turning your local range into a James Bond movie. A sensible ATF policy could make these devices easier to access, cutting through the red tape that currently bogs down law-abiding gun owners. Then there's the issue of pistol braces. These attachments have been under fire for years, with the ATF flip-flopping on their legality. For those of us who own these devices, the uncertainty is maddening. One clear, consistent rule could eliminate so much confusion and stress, and it's not hard to imagine a leader like Blake Masters pushing for that kind of reform. And let's not forget about 80% lowers. These unfinished firearm frames have been a hot-button issue for years, with opponents calling them ghost guns and pushing for stricter regulations. But the truth is, these are perfectly legal products that allow responsible gun owners to customize their firearms. A fair ATF policy could protect that right while addressing any legitimate concerns about misuse. Of course, reforming the ATF won't happen overnight, and there will be resistance from all sides. But Trump's approach, shrinking the agency's power and focusing on practical pro-Second Amendment policies, could lay the groundwork for real, lasting change. For gun owners, that's an outcome worth fighting for. Trump's impact on the ATF and Second Amendment issues is undeniable, whether it's through potential leadership changes, his track record of advocacy, or the reforms he's signaling. The question now is whether he'll follow through, and whether gun owners like us will stand behind him in the fight. Let's be real. Defunding or disbanding the ATF sounds great in theory, but is it actually realistic? One of the biggest challenges is the political backlash such a move would face. The ATF has been around for nearly a century, and dismantling it entirely would require navigating a web of legal, bureaucratic, and political obstacles. Even Trump, with all his bold moves, would need substantial support in Congress to make something like this happen. Then there's the argument that completely disbanding the ATF might lead to unintended consequences. Critics claim that without the ATF, gun regulations could fall under the jurisdiction of other federal agencies like the FBI, which might not be any better, or possibly even worse, for gun owners. The devil you know, right? Finally, we have to consider Trump's own track record. While he's made some big pro-Second Amendment moves, like his Supreme Court appointments, there's also the infamous bump stock ban. That decision left many gun owners questioning whether he's truly consistent when it comes to protecting our rights. The reality is, while shrinking the ATF's power and reforming its policies are achievable goals, fully disbanding the agency may remain a pipe dream for now. What do you think? Pipe dream or possibility? Here's where I stand. I don't think Trump will completely disband the ATF, but I do believe he has the potential to significantly reduce its power and influence. Appointing someone like Blake Masters, someone who actually understands firearms and respects gun owners, would be a major step in the right direction. Imagine an ATF that focuses on enforcing clear, fair policies instead of creating confusion for law-abiding citizens. That's a future worth fighting for. But I'm curious, what's your take? Should the ATF be defunded entirely, or is reform the better option? Do you think Trump's moves will bring us closer to protecting our rights, or are we still spinning our wheels? Drop your thoughts in the comments. This isn't just about my opinion. It's about all of us as gun owners and advocates shaping the future of the Second Amendment. And if you're still on the fence, remember this: the fight for our rights doesn't end with Trump, the ATF, or any single politician. It's up to us to stay informed, stay engaged, and keep the pressure on. Let's keep this conversation going. Your voice matters, so let's hear it. To wrap things up, Trump's approach to the ATF and the Second Amendment is nothing short of groundbreaking. Whether it's appointing someone like Blake Masters, reforming policies on suppressors, pistol braces, and 80% lowers, or simply reducing the ATF's power, the potential for change is massive. While disbanding the ATF might be a long shot, shrinking its influence and making it more accountable to gun owners is a goal within reach. Now it's your turn. What do you think? Will Trump's moves make a lasting impact, or are we looking at more political theater? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this discussion, make sure to like this video, share it with your friends, and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on future content. Together, we can keep this conversation alive and fight for our rights. Thanks for sticking with me through this deep dive into Trump, the ATF, and the future of the Second Amendment. These are big issues that affect all of us, and the only way to protect our rights is to stay informed and keep speaking up. I'll catch you in the next one. Until then, stay sharp, stay safe, and as always, hold them down. Let's keep this fight going, because the Second Amendment isn't just a right, it's our responsibility. See you next time.